6 of the charging men were dead in a moment as the Coryphée go to work, and Cassandra wields her blade. Colette hangs back to protect the other girls and to watch Cassandra's back. As one of the dolls is smashed, she notices a man with a bat charging her. He seems to be much more skilled than the rest of the men, and she tries to react, but he is faster. As he gets close, he swings the bat and it smashes into her head. What's up everybody, Jeff here, and we're back to run through all the lore for another master from Malifaux. This time up, we're talking about Colette from the Arcanists. So obviously this video will contain massive spoilers for Colette and all of her stories, and if you check the description below you can find a list of those stories, and you should definitely check them out for yourself. I hope you've been enjoying this series because this is episode number 53, and if you have, make sure you give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the last couple that are coming up. If you like talking about all things Malifaux as well as the rest of the hobby, then come check out the Discord server, which will be linked in the description too. And if you really like the channel, you can also find a link to the Patreon, where you can show some support and get a bunch of cool benefits. But now, let's get into Colette. Colette started out as a cheap pickpocket, using her charm and quick fingers to take valuables from men who didn't need them. She would take advantage of their careless advances, though she never did actually work as a lady of the night. Instead, she used her burlesque shows and sleight of hand to mesmerize dozens of men who were all eager for her attention. After crossing through the breach, Colette soon realized that parlor chicks were just the tip of the iceberg. Her ambition drove her to acquire her first soulstone, and she was soon able to drain its energy to fuel even more impressive displays. Rather than hiding out like most mages, Colette gathered a troop of girls with similar skills, and they all worked together to acquire more power and wealth. Accounts of their shows soon spread back Earthside, and now more and more travelers come to see their performances. A huge crowd comes to the Star Theater to watch the performance. As the women dance, the crowd is in awe, and the performers call out for any first-timers to join them on stage. The women make the men dance with them, to everyone's amusement, and afterwards, Cassandra takes the stage. She's even more graceful than the other girls, and performs impressive tricks with her sword. Finally, Colette appears, and after putting on a performance of her own, her assistant Cassandra shoots her with a gun, and everyone gasps as they see a bullet hole on her chest. Suddenly, she explodes in a cloud of smoke, and the crowd then notices her sitting at the back of the stage, and she asks them why they are so glum. Everyone cheers. Early in the morning, the performers are all out of their stage clothes and hard at work. Colette loads bags onto a cart, and Cassandra tells her that she's jealous she gets to go Earthside. Colette says it's only for a few days and tells the woman to lower them down. Cassandra hits the secret keys on their organ, and a platform begins to descend. The Star Theater was just a front for an Arcanist smuggling operation. Colette uses her charm on stage, but is also shrewd in negotiations. A great deal of business takes place in the Star Theater, involving the Soulstone trade, and the performers are then employed in smuggling the Soulstones out through the sewers to contacts waiting at Malifaux Station. Colette and Cassandra meet with the other women in an underground cavern as they all check on the inventory. They smuggle not only soulstones, but weapons, liquor, and anything else the guild tightly regulates. Colette tells Cassandra to take care of her theater, and the two women hug before Colette leads the other girls into the sewer. The sewer system beneath Malifaux is complex and vast, so it makes for a great way to smuggle illicit goods, because the guild hasn't taken the time to map it yet. As they make their way deeper inside, one of the girls sees a rat and tries to shoo it away, but it hisses back at her. Suddenly, a deluge of rats fall on her from a crack in the wall, and they knock her into the rushing torrent in the sewer, along with her cart. As she's carried away by the rushing water, the other girls chase after her, and eventually, they're able to pull her up onto the walkway. She tells Colette that the rats bit her, and the woman looks to find a bite mark on her arm that's not bleeding, but leaking a black ichor. The rest of her arm is covered in bruises. Colette says that they'll get her back to the star, but then the girl starts to spasm and black ichor pours out of her mouth. Her clothes then become stained as her body starts to liquefy. Colette tells everyone to run, and when they make it back to where the cart fell in, they see a mass of rats and other vermin. Colette quickly jumps forward and recovers a small sack before returning to the other girls and telling them to run. The pests begin to chase them, and one of the other girls falls behind and calls out to Colette for help. She reaches into the sack and pulls out a soulstone and then holds it over her head, and suddenly she trades places with the girl. She turns to face the swarm and yells for the other girls to keep running. Colette then crushes the soulstone in her hand, and fire starts to fill the tunnel, and then engulfs the swarm of pests as it advances. She hears more pests approaching and decides to repeat her trick to buy the girls more time. She grabs another soulstone but finds that it has a strange texture and looks at it to see that it has the appearance of amber, and it seems to have an insect inside. As the vermin get closer, she tries to crush the soulstone, but it doesn't give. She still feels the energy welling up inside her, and the fire comes again. The power continues to flow as a seemingly endless stream of flames shoot out. Colette's body, however, can't sustain it, and soon she's overtaken with exhaustion and falls on the floor. She hears a voice telling her that she will be the first to succumb to the plague. Colette laughs, saying that it's typical for the villain to gloat while the heroine escapes. The voice says that there will be no escape, and Colette shoots back that there's nothing here but smoke and mirrors. As another huge swarm of pests surges forward, they rush into Colette's body, but only collide with a pane of glass. The mirror fractures and breaks as the image of Colette vanishes, and the whole tunnel plunges into darkness. As Colette and the other showgirls prepare for a performance, Ramos enters the dressing room unannounced. The girls scramble to cover themselves, save for Cassandra, who's always been frustrated at how Ramos pays her no attention, so she approaches him topless, offering him a hug. Colette is not surprised when Ramos walks past her, annoyed. As he approaches, Colette's Coryphée turns towards the intruder, bearing its blades. Ramos waves his hand, and the Coryphée's head slumps and its blades retract. Colette laments that she lost one of her girls on the mission the night before. Ramos tells her that it doesn't matter since they're suspending their operations for the time being, as the guild has been increasing security. However, he can still come and check on his investments. Colette explains that they lost part of the shipment in the sewers, but it may be able to be recovered, and then she retrieves a bag of soulstones and hands them to him. Ramos begins inspecting them one at a time, and everyone in the room notices the particularly large and high-quality gems. He comes to one soulstone that doesn't shine as bright as the rest, and Colette asks him what it is. He motions for everyone to leave, and the room clears, leaving him alone with Colette. He tells the woman that this soulstone was developed at the Hollowmarsh station as part of Project Leviathan. Colette is surprised to hear that the Leviathan is real, and asks him why he hasn't destroyed the guild with such a powerful machine. Ramos holds the soulstone up by way of explanation, and Colette notices that it's cracked. He explains that even with all of their studies, they still don't know how or why soulstones work. This one was only able to power the Leviathan for a short period of time. He then tells her that she's a valued member of their organization, but that he fears she does not possess the mastery over her magical abilities that he normally expects. He hands her the soulstone and tells her that it's payment for her services. Cassandra suddenly re-enters the room, flanked by Joss, and tells Colette that the theater is full and the show will have to start soon. Ramos tells Joss to lead the other girls back inside. He whispers to Colette that there's a reason he chose her, and that he will need strong allies like her in the coming months. As he goes to leave, he turns back and adds that he's looking forward to the show tonight, and he expects that afterwards, Colette will return to the sewers to retrieve his shipment. The rest of the girls look at each other, hopeless. As they perform in their show that night, Colette considers that no one in attendance is aware of the type of business they get up to after hours. Colette sees a group of mechanical horses outside the Star Theater, pulling a carriage. She tells Cassandra that she needs one, and the woman replies impatiently, telling her that she's going to check on the deliveries. Colette tells her to deal with Ramos's messenger, while she goes to speak with the man in the carriage to find out who his craftsman is. She goes outside and looks over one of the horses, noticing its intricate parts, and how the machine looks and acts just like a real horse. The carriage opens, and Colette can't resist but to look inside. She sees the occupant of the carriage gesture for her to come in, so she does, and as she sits down, she notices that the man is holding a gun on her. She looks him over and finds his appearance is disheveled, and looks out of place in this setting. She recognizes the man, and greets Black Cyrus. The carriage starts moving, and the man takes away her possessions, hidden away in many secret pockets, including soulstones, mirrors, and other sharp objects. She stays calm and mentions that it's been 10 years and asks what the man wants from her. He says that it should be obvious. He taught her everything she knows, and she stabbed him in the back and took everything. Colette says that the money was hers, she had earned it. He pushed her to steal and grift, and then took the spoils for himself. She then adds that she didn't stab him in the back, as she tried to stab him in the chest, but he ran away like a weasel. He tells her that she is going to pay it all back, and then demands to know her secret. Colette is confused, and he says that she must have a secret to have been able to own her own theater, and have the Governor General himself coming to see her. He says that he knows about her smuggling operation, and that she must have some magic power or trinket, or other secret, and he wants it. Colette laughs as Cyrus seethes. She tells him that he is so thoroughly misunderstood that she doesn't even know where to begin. She looks around and sees a deck of cards in the carriage, and tells him that she will explain in a way that he can understand. He says she can do what she wants until they get to the Honeycross Bridge. Then he will kill her, and if she cooperates, he'll make it quick. He warns her that he taught her all the tricks she knows, and there's nothing new under the sun. Colette shoots back that they're no longer under his sun, they're under hers now. She shuffles the cards and shows him the Queen of Hearts, before kissing it and opening the window and throwing the card out. She shuffles again and deals the cards, using tricks of sleight of hand and card manipulation, while talking to Cyrus about the power struggles in Malifaux. She then hands him the deck and tells him to look, and as he looks through the cards, he finds the Queen of Hearts with a lipstick mark. He tells her that she simply palmed the card and didn't throw it out the window, and then he takes the card himself and tosses it into the night. She shuffles the cards again, continuing her demonstration, and then eventually hands him the deck a second time and asks him to look again. He once again finds the Queen of Hearts with the lipstick mark, and he comments that it's a good trick and puts the card in his chest pocket. He warns her that this isn't going to save her. She continues with her performance, and soon Cyrus tells her that they're at the bridge and time is up. She asks him to look at the deck one more time for old time's sake, and when he looks, he finds the Queen of Hearts with the lipstick mark. His hand shoots to his pocket as he demands to know how she's been doing this trick. She says that there are new tricks under the sun, as they hear a thud on the roof of the carriage. He jolts up and demands to know who is there, and Colette says that it's the Queen of Hearts and it's about time. A saber shoots through the ceiling and pierces Cyrus's arm. He drops his gun and the cart jolts, knocking them both to the ground. He jumps up first and tries to flee from the carriage, but a hand from above grabs him and tosses him into the darkness. Colette hears a faint splash as she calls out, asking what took her so long, and Cassandra emerges and tells her that they're about to go over the bridge. Colette grabs a control lever, and the carriage stops, but she hears 4 faint splashes in the distance as the horses fall into the river. She retrieves her belongings, and Cassandra asks if they should head back to the Star Theater. Colette laments the loss of the horses, and tells her that they must, because they will have an angry messenger wanting to get their goods out tonight, and her girls will need their rest for tomorrow's show. One of Colette's girls screams, but then suddenly disappears and is replaced by Colette herself. The scream continues from the position that Colette had previously been in, and she looks around at the nightmares that are attacking her girls. She tells the girl that if she can scream like that during a performance, she'll put her center stage. She then shouts for Cassandra to help one of the other girls, but soon realizes that the ambush is turning against them. Cassandra shouts back that Colette's new trick might be ready for an audience. Colette throws 3 playing cards at a 10-foot-tall teddy bear, and they embed themselves deep in its skull. Colette shreds a nightmare with a rainbow stream of magic. Colette swats back a spell from a stitch together, and it collapses in a putrid puddle on the ground. As the showgirls stand victorious, Colette, and Colette gather together as everyone else looks on in astonishment. Colette comments that she didn't realize how good the hat made her look, and another Colette replies that she would put her center stage any day. The third Colette winks, and then Cassandra asks them if they're quite finished. The middle Colette takes a bow, and like a mirror folding closed, the other 2 vanish. Colette then calls out for her mannequin and asks if somebody could put its head back on. Colette is the owner of the Star Theater, and as one of the most famous establishments on this side of the breach, it has allowed her to become quite rich. But she's well aware that her new dreams are hiding a cruel nightmare. Night after night, Colette performs in front of crowds of both the poor and the rich, including senior members of the guild. Her shows consist of true magic disguised as sleight of hand, and every performance poses a risk that a suspicious officer might discover her. Her secret smuggling operation has become more dangerous, as the sewers become filled with more terrors. But no matter what the danger, the Arcanists continue to demand more from them. In spite of this, Colette stays ahead of her enemies, and as long as she can keep them focused on the wrong hand, she can retain the freedom she's earned for herself. Colette is backstage and looks in the mirror and thinks about the first trick she ever learned, how to use makeup. She looks at some of her imperfections and thinks about how she's getting older, but then starts to put on the makeup and transforms her appearance. Cassandra comes in, and Colette feels a bit of jealousy, as the woman has no makeup on, and is wearing comfortable clothes, but still looks very beautiful. Cassandra sometimes has a hard time with the basics of their craft, because so many things come so easy to her. The woman asks if Colette is ready, and she replies by asking how many are there tonight. Cassandra tries to avoid answering, but then tells her that there's 16, and adds that it shouldn't matter. The show has just been getting good press. Colette comments that this is a new record, and every night there's more and more, referring to the guild members in the audience. Cassandra mentions that she's on in 10 minutes and then leaves. Colette sits alone and thinks about the job they have to do tonight and how Ramos had insisted, but first she has to put on the show. Her face lights up. They start to show off small as Colette walks out on stage rather than appearing. She notices the guild members in the crowd, and among their ranks is a witch hunter. After many amazing stunts, dancing, and pyrotechnics, the show winds down. The girls come out to bow, and the crowd gives a standing ovation, but Colette's eyes are drawn to one man, not standing, not clapping, not wearing bright clothes like the rest of them. The coffin that they carry through the sewers is heavy, but luckily it's carried by the clockwork dolls. Many people have asked Colette who made the dolls for her, but she never reveals her secrets. As they make their way through the tunnels, Cassandra notices that Colette isn't chatting with the other girls and asks her why she seems worried. They stop as they hear footsteps approaching, and Colette knows that whoever it is must be looking for them specifically, or whatever's in the coffin. 20 men approach, all ruffians. Some look like they're trying to look respectable, but they're all carrying improvised weapons. One of them tells the women to leave the coffin, and no one has to get hurt. Colette steps in front of the other girls and tells them that she doubts she's in any danger from the likes of them. He starts to say that she won't be if she leaves the coffin, but Colette raises her hand and gives the smallest twist. A soulstone drains, which would soon be recharged, as the lines of energy that made the man twist, and he is undone. He gasps and hits the ground, and she looks at the other men, knowing that if they were men, they would all flee, but they are just women. She mentally marks out the dangerous ones and points them out to Cassandra subtly. The showgirls step back. They could fight, but why bother when they have the choreography? The dolls step forward, and Cassandra draws her sword. 6 of the charging men were dead in a moment, as the choreography go to work, and Cassandra wields her blade. Colette hangs back to protect the other girls and to watch Cassandra's back. As one of the dolls is smashed, she notices a man with a bat charging her. He seems to be much more skilled than the rest of the men, and she tries to react, but he is faster. As he gets close, he swings the bat and it smashes into her head. He lifts the bat to continue hitting her, but he suddenly realizes that he's only smashing another of the dolls. From far away, he hears Colette's voice telling him that he trusts his eyes too much. She takes a bow, and the rest of the men decide to flee, but Colette orders the Coryphée to go after them. When they regroup, Colette points out that someone knew they were here, and she does not like surprises. They need to get back to the theater. As the girls clean up from the night's show, Colette stands over the coffin, wondering what is inside. It was obviously one of Ramos's enemies who came for whatever it was. She seethes and then suddenly realizes that the man in the dark clothes from the show is standing in the room with her. He comments that it's a nice coffin she's got, in a gruff voice. She notices his hands in his pockets, and Colette knows the difference between someone pretending to hide something dangerous and someone who actually has something dangerous. He was dangerous. She tells him it is nice and asks if he wants to try it out. She palms a soulstone, and she sees the man notice. He's looking at her hand, not her lips, or her breasts, or her hips. He was very dangerous. She hears steps approaching, and one of the other girls telling someone that Colette does not want to be disturbed. A voice commands her to leave, and Colette wonders who it could be, as it's obviously someone with authority. As the figure approaches, she recognizes the witch hunter, and then notices that the man across from her does not seem happy to see him. The witch hunter tips his hat and introduces himself as Donner, and then says that there's no need to be formal, as he is just looking into some rumors. Colette notices that he does not acknowledge the other man. She tries to introduce herself, but he cuts her off and asks how she manages the magic she does. Colette replies that you know what they say about magicians, and he cuts her off again, adding that magicians hope that their magic isn't legit. Colette's blood runs cold, and the witch hunter turns to the man and asks what he is doing there. The man struggles to reply, so Colette plays dumb and approaches the man and tells the witch hunter that he was just a fan who wanted a tour after the show. She adds that she didn't even get his name. The man says that his name is Richter, and as Colette moves away from him, the witch hunter tells him that he looks like someone named Handsome Bill. Colette notices a shift in the man, as the witch hunter explains that Handsome Bill was a notorious spell slinger who steals soulstones. Colette gasps and asks if that's what she saw, and when the witch hunter asks what she means, she says that she saw the man holding a pretty gem. Richter is confused and puts his hand in his jacket pocket, claiming that he does not have any soulstones, as his voice trails off, and when he pulls his hand out, he's holding a soulstone. The witch hunter tells him not to move or he'll be cut down, and Richter insists that the soulstone isn't his. Colette calls for them both to calm down, and when Richter moves slightly, the witch hunter cuts him down before he can even draw his gun. Colette stammers that he killed the man, and does her best to look pale and flustered, but inwardly she smiles. The witch hunter tells her he was probably planning to do the same to her, and laments that he unfortunately can't question the man now, as he's dead. He turns and looks at the coffin, and asks her why it doesn't look like the rest of their equipment. She insists that it's just a prop, and he asks if she minds if he takes a look, as he doesn't remember a coffin being in the show. As he approaches the coffin, she lets another soulstone drop into her palm. The man was fast, and she'd only have one chance. He kicks open the coffin, and curiosity gets the better of her as she shifts to take a look before she takes action. Both of them are confused when all they see is sawdust. He says that he's surprised not to find anything, and Colette says that they used the sawdust to give it weight so it feels like something's inside. He tells her to go upstairs and wait, as this is a crime scene. As she walks away, Colette realizes that he knew about the coffin too. So many people had come looking for it, but there was nothing inside. It was all a trick, and at the center was Dr. Ramos. Colette stands alone in the Star Theater. She calls on the power that has become so familiar to her, and splits herself into three. But then, the three split into three, and then again, and soon she fills the whole theater with copies of herself. The copies start to argue with each other, and it's not clear if any of them is the real woman anymore. Above all of it, the arcane effigy looks on with a smile. Elsewhere in Malifaux, the Governor General performs his ritual to ascend and become a tyrant, but the ritual goes awry, and he's fused with the tyrant Cherufe, and forms the Burning Man. Colette wakes up and realizes that something happened to her. She sits up and tries to call on the power to split herself again, but finds that it isn't there. She sees a figure in the auditorium, and it bows to her, so she curtsies back. Colette decides to go back to work, and the arcane emissary follows her. After the Governor General's death, the Guild began cracking down on Arcanist operatives. Between that and the general sense of uncertainty in the city, the attendance at the Star Theater was declining rapidly. Colette decided to take some measures to try to bring up attendance, and began pushing her girls to practice larger and more elaborate shows. She also hired a handful of male showgirls to appeal to the growing population of young women in the city, and the Star Theater's attendance numbers began to increase. Behind the scenes, Ramos's disappearance led to Colette taking some more freedom, and Karis's reign of terror allowed Colette to go unsupervised. When Karis arrived to begin demanding she resume her smuggling duties, Colette insisted that she be given more control over her own operations. Karis agreed on the condition that Colette's girls remain available for other Arcanist activities, and soon Karis and Colette became unlikely friends. While Colette and most of the girls are on a mission, they leave a new girl named Betty behind to watch the theater. While they're away, an angry and drunk fan knocks on the door, and after finding out that Colette's not there, he gets violent. He tries to burn down the theater, but Betty and her mannequin manage to stop him and save the star in the process. Colette looks on as Betty stars in a show, juggling flaming batons and doing acrobatics. Cassandra comments that she's stealing her bit, and Colette replies that she's earned it. The increased pressure that Ramos was putting on Colette and her girls had caused her one-time ally to become a thorn in her side. When Ramos was arrested, Colette didn't shed a tear, but used her newfound freedom to continue growing her operation. The theater has flourished since Ramos has been gone, and it's not clear if it's due to Ramos having a hand in stifling the theater's prosperity, or if it's simply because Colette's stress levels are reduced. Now, Karis is giving Colette more control over her smuggling operation, and she's sought out new opportunities to let goods flow freely through the breach. A band called Fortune's Favor was booked to perform at the Star Theater. When they get on stage, they start to perform discordant music, and the packed crowd in attendance begins to act unusually. The music has an effect on them, and soon they're all giving in to their sins and attacking each other. Angelica watches from behind stage and senses that something is wrong. She heads to the aviary and picks a mechanical dove to send word to Colette, who is off on a mission smuggling soulstones. Pandora walks in the theater to see the chaos that's unfolding. A man and a woman appear to be presiding over the ordeal. The tyrant Despair, from within Pandora's body, addresses the man and woman, recognizing them as the tyrant Fortune, and remarks about how Fortune has taken 2 hosts instead of just 1. The man and woman tell Despair that they're surprised to see someone figured out his puzzle box, and that it was bold of him to take a Neverborn host. As the man approaches, Despair starts to feel the influence of the music that puts him in a trance as a member of the audience approaches him and beats him with an armrest. Pandora wakes up feeling like she might be dead, parts of her body mangled and broken. She reaches into her pocket and uses a soulstone to heal the wounds. As she looks up to see the man and woman on the stage with a swirl of energy around them, suddenly the curtain falls, covering the band and causing the music to stop, and Colette reveals herself, telling the man and woman that they're not welcome. The woman attacks her, but she teleports away as the man influences her luck, causing the supports beneath her feet to collapse. At that, Pandora approaches the stage, and the man tells Despair that he is too late, but Pandora responds that Despair is not there, as she opens her box, causing a flood of woes to attack them. Pandora senses a presence in her consciousness, and as she presses her attack, trying to impart self-destructive tendencies on the man, she feels the presence within her boosting her power. The man uses Fortune's power to oppose her, but he is overwhelmed and launches an attack against the woman, causing her to fall backwards through the stage, breaking her neck. The man is overcome with despair and goes to attack Pandora again as Sloth gets out from under the curtain and attacks him with his music. The distraction lasts just long enough for Pandora to approach, opening her box and pulling Fortune inside. She turns to the band and tells them that she doesn't like their music and they should play a different song, and then leaves. After the incident, Colette gives an interview to the Tattler about the Neverborn attack on her theater, and she bemoans the Guild's inability to protect the people. The Guild spin the story to place all the blame on the Neverborn, and as they watch the repairs being done on the stage, Angelica asks Colette why she bothered giving the interview at all. Colette says that it's good publicity, and then Angelica asks her what she did with the soulstones. Colette replies that she gave them to Karis because she thought the woman would make better use of them anyway, and now she won't have to buy her a birthday gift, and she's so difficult to shop for. Rumors began to spread about a nefarious force behind the attack on the Star Theater, but gossip alone wouldn't sustain a bored audience, and with the theater under construction, Colette had to focus on other activities. She started taking on more dangerous smuggling jobs, and even began embedding herself in with her clients, who used to just be names on a list. This has attracted Guild attention, and she and some of her girls began getting called in for questioning about their connections with the Arcanists. The Burning Man's arrival was the perfect misdirection, and with all the chaos that's ensued, the Guild seems to have forgotten about Colette and her girls. Now she has full control over what she does, and she intends to keep it once the flames die down. And that's it for Colette. She's one of the more interesting Arcanists. It's hard to tell where her loyalties really lie. And it seems like she's friends with Karis, but I'd also be surprised if she supported the more aggressive stance that Karis tends to take. And it makes me wonder what Colette and Ironside's relationship is like. Maybe we'll get a story about them in the future. We also know she's going to have some relationship with Damien Ravencroft, the new Arcanist Master, since we got a little teaser of this story from the new book. So it's going to be fun to find out where that story goes in a couple of weeks. But either way, I hope they finish construction on the Star Theater so she can get back to putting on her shows, because I think the whole showgirl performer aspect of her crew is really cool. But anyway, drop a comment below and let me know which of Colette's stories is your favorite. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends. Check out the Discord and the Patreon. Huge shout out to the Extremely Cool Kids tier on the Patreon, Steam Powered Scoundrels, and Dogmatized. And thanks for watching.